Hey, how's it going, people? CineMax here, a.k.a. the anime Fedora Man, and right next to me is B-Mask, a.k.a. OTP number 2.
Yum yum.
Considering what I've just said, the whole yum yum thing can be taken severely out of context.
I'm really hoping that you just add a rose in my mouth for that one.
No, I'm just gonna add the same thing that 4chan added to Ego Raptor's girlfriend's face.
Oh god.
Yeah, yum yum. Salty.
God damn it. Depends on what you ate earlier, but I digress. Max, you had something to tell me about DC. Would you like to elaborate on how they fucked up this time?
Yeah, well, have you heard that they're actually producing like a Batman prequel / origin type of story that doesn't really feature Batman?
Yes, it's the NYPD, or rather GCPD based one, where they talk about the Gotham police and how they deal with Gotham City.
Yeah, well, you know what? I wish it was actually a show about the GCPD, but instead it's gonna be... It's hard to put my finger on what exactly the show is trying to accomplish, but basically, they're going down the Smallville route.
Oh, because that worked so well before.
Yeah, they're going down that route, and I've actually, like prior to yesterday, we did know a couple of details, like, you know, obviously it's going to focus on, like, you know, Commissioner Gordon's early years, and there's going to be Harvey Bullock, and I think Will Smith's wife was going to appear like a, like, you know, hard as nails gangster. But anyways, actually, yesterday, in preparation for this recording, I've stumbled across this one article, which, and actually this time we're most likely going to link these in the description box so that people can be on the same page as us.
Yeah, sure.
But anyways, apparently IO9 had managed to obtain like a second draft of the pilot episode.
Really?
And let me tell you something. It's bad. It's not necessarily Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles, you know, Casey Jones as an IKEA guard fighting against the Foot Clan bad. But it's really, like, okay, let me put it this way. Remember how I described Arkham Origins as, like, baby's first Batman story to you?
And you weren't wrong, yes.
Well, I wasn't, but I actually take it back because compared to this shit, that's like Shakespeare. So anyways, from what I've read, the entire pilot is basically gonna be Commissioner Gordon, at the time Lieutenant Gordon or whatever, and Harvey Bullock basically going on a joyride or like an excursion of some sorts around Gotham, and you're gonna have these two contrasting characters, like an idealistic young Gordon and a morally corrupt Bullock, and basically Bullock is just gonna explain to Gordon how, you know, see, Gotham is a bad place, okay? So you're gonna have like Harvey Bullock and Commissioner Gordon, you know, drive somewhere near a crime alley, and out of nowhere, Bullock is gonna stop and go, "Ah, yeah, a crime alley. That's the place where that rich kid's parents were murdered, wasn't it?"
Thank you, Captain Exposition. It's like, fuck.
Trust me, it gets worse, okay? Like, over the course of the pilot, apparently they run into like a 14-year-old Selena Kyle, who is already at the time like an amateur thief and has a thing for cats.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh no. You see that poor little kid? She used to be rich, but now she hangs around with cats. That's all she got left.
That's actually very close to what he actually says, although he makes a remark. God. He makes like a remark that, she kind of reminds me of a cat or something like that.
Hey Harleen, are you back for your psychiatry test today? Don't get it wrong now. Oh look, it's Jack. That Jack always pulling pranks on the cops.
Listen, you're actually closer to reality than you think, because listen here, later on in the same episode, they run into the Penguin, who is still like a small-time crook or something, and you actually...
Wait, so the Penguin was a crook, like, even when he was, like, 17?
I guess so. Like, he is, like, the what's her name? Not Jenna Jackson, sorry. Will Smith's wife. He's like her... Sorry.
Your mind be wandering, my friend.
I know, but basically he's like her right-hand man who's kind of like trying to usurp her. Like, that's gonna be his arc. Anyways, so upon meeting him, like, Harvey Bullock, like, remarks how Oswald Cobblepot disgusts him, and he actually drops a remark that that obnoxious front, you know what, he actually reminds me of a penguin.
I almost feel that they should turn to the audience and just be like, you know, that's never gonna come up again, and then of course and then she go, 10 years later, shit, we really called that one, didn't we? You know.
Yes, I just and that's like the entire pilot. Oh, here's a good one. They actually also run into Poison Ivy for whatever reason, yet this entire apartment is like furnished with plans. And again, in a brilliant bit of expository dialogue, you have Harvey Bullock say like, That crazy broad likes plants more than she does humans.
Wait, so does Harvey Bullock just go around commenting on general shit in his area, and then Gordon like looks up and go, Harvey, who are you talking to?
Pretty much.
I just thought I'd let people know, because, you know, this crazy flat lady. Oh, look, it's Wesker. Throwing your voice again, I see. You never amount to anything. You did no bit too tired. Look, it's that fucking guy who uses the clay. And Harvey, who are you talking to? No, it's the clay guy. He can't act. He'll never be an actor. Some say he's got a clay face.
And of course, my most favorite bit is when at the end of this joy ride, like as the script states, Gordon is now a changed man.
This just sounds like a really long and drawn-out version of both what happens in The Long Halloween and before that in Batman Year One. It just sounds like it's expounding upon ideas that we've already covered in a much more succinct and more interesting way. And also the fact that, as you said, it's taking the Smallville route, it's just an excuse to cram in as much iconography as possible in order to keep the audience high, because with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. it hasn't worked in quite the same way, because it's only now they've started to shove in a lot of iconography to keep audience interest.
Yeah.
That's really depressing.
Well, here's my question to you. What is the point of this show? And I know that's a bit like a broad question, but because you could say like, well, what's the point of any prequel, right? But the thing about the Batman universe is that prior to learning the details of this series, I was actually kind of excited of the idea of a GCPD show.
Yes.
But the thing is, one thing you need to realize about the Batman supporting cast and the Rogues Gallery is that what makes them so interesting and complex is the fact that they exist in the same universe as Batman.
As Batman, exactly. They have to deal with the same shit that Batman has to deal with on a regular basis, but with even more impossible odds.
Yeah, or rather, in the case of the GCPD, they have to deal with Batman.
Yes.
I was interested in the idea of like a gritty, down-to-earth GCPD type of show where
the problem is they're setting it in the past.
True, but I was kind of hoping for have a scene where, say, Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya are like having an argument about whether or not they need Batman and how it feels to be and what it means to be a cop in a city where they need to rely on a deranged psychopathic vigilante to do their job for them, And of course, obviously they would never go and adapt, say, the Joker or Harley Quinn or Mr. Freeze on the small screen, but still, you can have smaller villains like, I don't know, Victor Zsasz or Killer Moth or Calendar Man, for instance.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, like you mentioned, it's set in the past, and here's the thing. Prior to Batman making an appearance in Gotham was all about crooks and gangsters, and that's it. And listen, Lord knows I like me some gangsters, okay? Goodfellas is one of my all-time favorite films, but that just makes the show another run-of-the-mill Law and Order type.
It's one of the things I really liked about the Paul Dini Bruce Timm animated series. There was that one episode, the introduction of Poison Ivy, where we open up with the mayor. This is in the past, before anyone has become who they later turn out to be, and the mayor is digging up a new prison in a big botanical sort of garden, and says, "Oh, we're going to make a cleaner, safer Gotham." And then it cuts to the prison having now been built. The sky is now jet black, and the caption says, "15 years later." Something like that, a cleaner, safer Gotham. And of course it's all gone to shit, and that should be where your story is. Why is it that Gotham became so scummy? Where did it all go wrong? And that's why I love the animated series, because it's all implied that Gotham was actually as good as Metropolis, especially in Mask of the Phantasm, where you have the world of the future, which is supposed to reflect Gotham's mood at the time, and then we cut 15 years in the future, and of course everything's all grimy and horrible. And it's, how did it get to that state? And it's not necessarily because of the increase of crime was not necessarily because the bad guys just got badder. More likely it's to do with the mayor being incompetent, with bad decisions made in the police department, in the bureaucracy. And so that's what I'd want to see, and that's why I think the GCPD series could have gone in an interesting direction if it, as you said, kept away from the more obvious villains, because it's not about them.
No.
It's about how Gotham fucked up and why Batman had to exist in the first place, because the villains the Joker's mentality, he's pointed this out on numerous occasions. The fact that the villains came after Batman, not before Batman. And that's why I'm kind of frustrated that they're doing this whole thing of, they were always going to eventually spring out of the woodwork, fully formed as these, It's almost as if these characters sort of, Batman's got a gimmick, we should get a gimmick. That's what I kind of like about that. Obviously, there were deep psychological problems, but they manifested in a certain way after Batman's existence. I don't like the idea that it's...
Yeah, like the appearance of Batman just exacerbated the, psychological disorders that were there. Yeah.
That's why I was annoyed with the animated series they were going to make called Gotham High. It never got made.
Oh,
it was this,
Christ.
Yeah, the idea that they were always like this in college and Batman hung out with them and...
especially the Joker with his bleach white skin and green hair, etc. Yeah, he was always like that. And freaking Bane, despite the fact that he's still meant to be in the prison in whatever country.
No, in this continuity, he's the strapping jock with Killer Croc who makes fun of Bruce Wayne, despite the fact that Bruce is, for all intents and purposes, a strapping jock himself. So the gag kind of falls down flat there.
And, of course, the reason why I asked you is, what's the point of the show is that we know for a fact that the series is going to end with Bruce Wayne putting on the...
Becoming Batman.
So we're never going to get to all the interesting stuff that happens afterwards. So it's like... Wow.
People forget that the reason Year One is such a great story is not because it's the origin story of Batman, but actually it's the origin story of Jim Gordon.
Yes.
And it's the story about why Jim Gordon is the way he is now, how he came to grips with dealing with Batman. Arkham Origins also didn't deal with this in a very intelligent or interesting way. It just kind of was like, Gordon is against Batman, but then he realizes they're on the same side.
Yes.
What I really like about Year One is it's about how Gordon arrives in Gotham and starts to experience things that are completely different to what he's experienced in his previous, location. He's having an affair, he's having to deal with corrupt cops, and Batman barely comes into it. Batman only comes to his attention because of all these activities. It just highlights everything he'd been dealing with in the first place, and it's a much more interesting narrative. And I wonder what this series could possibly say that would be any more interesting than that. I honestly can't think of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget, I totally forgot about this, but let's not forget about the fact that Bruce Wayne is actually gonna be featured in the show, but he's gonna be 12. And this is gonna be right after his parents were killed, so you're just gonna have this really angsty kid. But apparently he's gonna be BFFs with Gordon, so what they're doing is they're preempting the Gordon-Batman relationship.
God!
They were always destined to be together.
Which completely defeats the purpose of the idea that Gordon actually doesn't like Bruce Wayne that much. Everybody's opinion of Bruce Wayne is, it's that playboy, that fly-by-night, that guy who never does what he should be doing. Even Gordon has that opinion. Gordon has a relationship with Batman, but he has no relationship with Bruce Wayne. Aside the occasional, are you going to be alright? Yeah, I think I'll be okay, thanks. Well, I guess I'll see you later next time you need help. It doesn't make any sense. And even if it is its own continuity, again, it's the whole destiny thing. They are all destined to be best buddies, and Bruce Wayne is kind of like this Batman character who's showing up now. I mean, for God's sake.
Listen, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Every stanza's for who've been fucking with my medicine. It's all just coming together beautifully.
Well, another thing to bring up is there's really no reason for this show to exist, because A, it's just gonna tell its terrible story and it's gonna be over with, and B, it's not really gonna lead into anything, because from what I understand, DC is actually trying to copy what Marvel is doing and are trying to branch out and create a continuity of sorts. Albeit it's a bit confusing if, say, the TV continuity is going to be in the same continuity as the movies, but whatever. At least they're actually trying to do something with their newest hit, the Arrow TV series, which I'm just gonna go ahead and say that neither of us are particularly fans of, but I don't think... My stance on it is that I don't mind it. I'm not a huge fan of the character, and I kind of understand what they're trying to do with it, and it's if you like the show, it's fine by me, it's not my thing, but All things considered, yeah, I think it's kind of actually impressive that DC has managed to get themselves out of a rut and are actually doing something with this show. But at the same time, I also don't really understand the universal praise that it's getting. And I think that a lot of this praise has to do with name drops and cosplays.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like, oh hey, it's Green Arrow. Okay, what can we do with the character? Does he have any interesting villains? Or not really. It's like, okay, let's just give him half of like Batman's supporting cast or villains. So you have like Deadshot make an appearance and like Deathstroke,
who also turned up on the Smallville show.
He did. And you also have Deathstroke, who's now Oliver Queen's mentor. And then you have the Huntress, and then guess what? Nightwing is actually gonna make an appearance, so...
Of course, because why not? I mean, this is ridiculous. The problem with Arrow is that he could be an interesting character, but they've changed him to the point where he is basically another Batman.
He's a low-rent Batman is what he is.
Yeah, it's just some random guy made this point how many years ago? About 5-6 years ago, and it still holds true. Everybody's trying to be darker, more gritty, more like Batman in order to gain an audience and popularity. And the minute everybody becomes Batman, nobody is. It's the problem I have with Arrow. I agree. It's not particularly compelling as a character. It is just a low rent Batman, and a lot of people have been praising it. I tried to watch an episode of it, and I just found the acting to be so subpar that it was actually really difficult to get into it because I couldn't. A lot of people are just interested in the lore and the writing. For me, it's the full package. The acting has to be strong as well, and it really was not strong in Arrow. It was there.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the trailer for like the second half of the second season, and where they hint at the oh my god, it's the Suicide Squad,
which would be a much more interesting show. I love the idea of a bunch of villains who their last chance at redeeming themselves is in a program called the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I like Amanda Waller myself, but here's the thing. Amanda Waller is a great Batman adversary, like the kind of relationship that they have, and which was brilliantly addressed in the Justice League Unlimited TV show, the animated TV show.
Absolutely.
And my question is, why is she an Arrow?
Because again, they don't have any. There's only one Green Arrow villain I know about, and his name is Onomatopoeia, and he seemed interesting. He was I think he was. I could be completely wrong. Please correct me in the comments. I think Onomatopoeia was a assassin who, like his namesake, was able to. I think it was either mimicry. It was some sort of form of mimicry where the sounds related to his powers and what he could create. And he seemed like a perfect foil for Green Arrow, but I don't think he was a big enough contender in the end. So
No.
I think this was before crises happened at least twice.
Yeah. So again, the thing is, nothing against the show personally, but it does seem like DC is desperately trying to cram in as much as they can into the show's continuity because, guess what? The Flash made an appearance in a couple of episodes, and now the Flash is getting his own spin-off show.
What are the odds? Yeah.
Which, again, is kind of confusing because we don't know if this is going to be the same Flash that's going to make an appearance in the inevitable, I'd say, Justice League feature-length movie. And really, it's actually a bit jarring because what they've been doing with Arrow so far, from what I understand, is they were trying to make it as subdued and down-to-earth as possible. And with The Flash, despite the fact that this, is happening in the same continuity as Arrow, and is actually created by the same guys who made the Arrow TV show, you have them going like, nope, we're not doing the same thing we're doing with Arrow, we're actually going full Flash here. So he's gonna run around at the speed of light, and he's actually gonna fight against guys like Captain Cold, or even better, Captain Boomerang, which kind of seems jarring to me. I mean, to be fair, DC has always had this kind of like...
it's had a love-hate relationship for sure with its own mythos.
Not even that. It's what I'm trying to say is like there's Batman, and then there's the rest of the DC universe. Like Batman is more subdued. It's more... I might as well bring this up right now because this is actually brilliant, and I've wanted to bring this up for a long time. There's like a one-shot issue that's been published that's like one of those Superman-Batman crossover things, right? And what makes it so brilliant is that the story actually doesn't feature either Superman or Batman. Instead, it actually focuses on the sidekicks, so to speak. Yes. So in this case, and I'm only vaguely familiar with the story, but what I remember is the ending, or rather that one particular bit at the ending. So the story is that basically Superman sends sends Supergirl, who had just recently arrived to Earth, to go and like study with Batman or something. But Batman's away, and there's only a Robin there, right?
Yeah.
And the two of them are hanging around when all of a sudden there's like a breakout at Arkham Asylum, right? So Supergirl being Supergirl, she's excited. It's like, yay, let's stop Batman villains, because I've heard so much about how they're like the worst of the worst. And they go there and they're trying to pacify the villains. And of course, her being super powerful, she goes after the big ones, like, I don't know, Salmon Grundy or Clayface or Poison Ivy. She's almost yawning and she's like bored, and it's like, oh, so these are the great Batman villains. Oh, like a plant lady or a guy who can morph. What's so great about them? Like, they're piss easy. All I need to do is just punch them. And then she gets to the last one. She opens the door, and you actually have Victor Zsasz sitting there on top of like a pile of bodies, about to dismember some poor woman. And he's just like turns to her and he's like, shh, like, close the door, I'm working. And she's petrified. For all her super strength, for all her superhuman reflexes, she can't do a thing. She's petrified. She just can't move, right? Like, that shows the exact contrast of what kind of world Batman has to deal with, and what kind of world the likes of Superman and Supergirl have to deal with. It's like
it's all brain and no brains. Whereas with Batman, it's very much a psychological experience. Which Superman cannot really get his head around.
Yeah, and I guess the same kind of contrast, or the same kind of discrepancy, yeah, that's the word I was looking for, is happening with Arrow. You have Arrow, who's, like, in the first season, I think he was actually kind of killing his enemies, but then he decided to become more heroic, and it's like, no, there has to be another way, and it's all grounded in reality, and it's so angsty and broody. And then you have the fucking Flash, running around, and it's like, hey, how are you doing, citizen? I'm the Flash, and I'm gonna go and punch a gorilla in the face. So, actually, I'd like to see them try to adapt Gorilla Grodd on the big screen.
Oh god, because Gorilla Grodd is supposed to be one of the Flash's biggest villains, and can't see how they're gonna get that together. I mean, it worked in Justice League Unlimited, but even then it was like, god, it's a fucking gorilla.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to imagine how they're gonna adapt him, if it's gonna be CGI, but I'm just like trying to imagine like this just this guy in like a rubber gorilla suit going roof.
Oh dear lord, because they can't exactly CG it to the best of their ability, because they won't have the budget to. Oh, that's terrible. That's really terrible. But I kind of want to see it done. I really want to see someone try, so that someone can look at it later and get it done right.
Well, again, this is what we brought up, is the fact that people just want to see, like, I want to see how this character is gonna, appear in the show, how they're gonna adapt him, and that's pretty much it. Like, I know there are people who are really into the show and who enjoy the mythos and the continuity and whatnot. So I don't want to offend them by saying that oh, it's just shit, don't bother with it. But
yeah.
No, I mean, I just, like, that's the appeal. That's the main appeal of Arrow so far, is that, oh, hey, Nightwing is going to make an appearance. Oh, and the Birds of Prey are going to show up, and the Suicide Squad is there. Which, I guess, is kind of a bit better than what Marvel is doing with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now. Because with that show, you just don't get anything out of it.
The real problem with that show is it's really well written, and it's really well cast, really well sort of thought out, but it's not interesting. I don't know how else to say it. It's like the dialogue works brilliantly, but the plotting and the structural elements of it just aren't interesting enough to really get behind. It's a shame, because everything about the first episode was really solid and made sense and everything, but the problem was I wasn't interested. I didn't care about any of it. You can almost be too perfect. It's almost like I recently saw Grand Budapest Hotel, and the problem is that because everything works so finely, that everything runs like clockwork, and everything is where it should be, it's almost a problem. It's almost it's something that you can enjoy sort of in a Brechtian way. You can sort of distance yourself from it, but you can't actually engage with it in the same way that you might want to. And that, I think, is probably the biggest problem that I face with the shows like Arrow, as much as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, because even if it was finally put together, the only interest you would have is that things are kind of tenuously linked to things that you recognize from the respective franchises.
Yeah, it's fan service.
Exactly, it's just fan service, and it should be about more than that. It's about creating something that's really kind of just engaging and interesting, all those words, all those things that we watch shows for. We're at the point where you can pretty much make anything, but it's about making it mean something, Yeah. You can make anything well, but can you make anything good?
Yeah, and this is something I was about to bring up anyways. It's the fact that, like, if like 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, someone came up to me and said, like, listen, 10 years from now, they're gonna make an Avengers movie. I would have just laughed in that person's face because that would have seemed like a fantasy to me. Like, what? They can barely make standalone movies for these characters, and you expect like a massive team up. It's like, nah, it's never gonna happen, right?
And then fast forward to last month, and we have Rocket Raccoon showing his stuff on screen. It's insane.
So it's almost like, again, I despise this term, but it's almost like a golden age of some sorts of like superhero movies right now, or at least like a superhero movie renaissance, let's call it that.
I guess renaissance is a good word for it, yeah.
But at the same time, and on the one hand, you can't complain because it's like, again, 10 years ago we barely had anything, and don't get me started on like the 90s with like the shitty Captain America movie and and the Justice League TV stuff where the main villain was what's his name, Weather Wizard.
Oh boy, fucking Weather Wizard.
Yeah, all those wonderful years. But at the same time, I'm also kind of curious, like, if we're not at like an oversaturation point, if you know what I mean, where it's like we are at a point where you can make anything, like you can actually put these characters on the big screen, but the question is, do you really need to?
Exactly. It's because making these things is about communication with an audience. If you're doing it for, I don't want to say reasons of marketability per se, because anything can be made marketable in the end.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it purely for sort of, oh, I remember that, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons, And they're certainly doing that with the GCPD show, and, they're definitely going with that with the Arrow show. But with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they've got that in there, but it's like, it's even less than that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said, like, they're doing it for reasons of marketability, and I think it's important to assert that, we're not naive to think that Marvel isn't doing it for the same reason, i.e. catching.
Oh, absolutely, yes. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series is definitely just about cashing in on the success of the Avengers.
I'm just talking about the movies in general,
Yes.
It's a business for them, and they're trying to make money, but at the same time, they're also striving to make the best product possible. So they actually have a plan going on, and that's why first they made the standalone movies, and they later on, like the Avengers, it was a massive gamble. It was a gamble. There was no way to predict whether or not it would work, and at the end it did. And at the end, Marvel learned the value of supporting like talented guys like Joss Whedon, and that value was exactly $1 billion. So, but DC, I don't see them doing that. It's like after the Avengers, they realize like, oh shit, maybe we should have actually made a Justice League movie or something.
Yeah, the problem is they're throwing absolutely everything out now, just seeing, desperately what will come out of it. But
it's like the Gestapo is right outside their door, and they're just trying to hide whatever contraband they have.
Exactly.
So it's like, oh, shit, what do we have? Man of Steel. Okay, like the next movie's gonna feature Batman and Wonder Woman, and maybe Nightwing will make an appearance, and maybe Arrow.
But we still got to put Lex Luthor in because I guess it's still a Superman movie, and maybe you should put in Brainiac as well. I don't know. Just throwing out ideas here. What do we got?
They're just throwing all the darts simultaneously at the board, just seeing what sticks.
I'm reminded of the topless robot competition years ago where Rob asked everyone to send in sort of what's happening at DC sort of movie industry right now, what's happening at the company, and somebody sent in a great entry where it's like the boss of the company is knocking on the door saying, let me in, you've locked me out again, and the employees are yelling out the window, dude, the sign says just pull the door open, and he's still down there going, every day you do this to me, you pricks. It's like, it's exactly the problem with what's happening at DC right now. They seem to have no idea what their property is, what they're doing, or why they're even there, and it shows in their products. It shows in all of their products, except for Batman. Well, except for the Arkham series, the video game series.
Yeah,
it seems to be the only series so far that's doing all right, and I wonder if it's because most of it is on the back of Rocksteady just doing their darndest.
It pretty much is.
Yeah, because it was interesting. They announced recently that Paul Dini wasn't in fact writing the new game, and at first I was like, that's worrying. But then I kind of thought about it. It's like, well, wait a minute, this isn't the same as Arkham Origins, where they didn't use Dini because it was a completely different studio making a game for the sake of making a game, so that they could get the money to roll in. What was happening with Arkham Knight was that Rocksteady have very clearly been fans from the beginning.
Yeah.
As much as Paul Dini's writing or rather his plotting has been interesting, his writing hasn't actually been anything particularly standout. And whereas all the extra stuff, which has been put in there by Rocksteady, as opposed to Paul Dini, is the stuff worth paying attention to. And I kind of feel that they were using Paul so that they could get credibility, so that they could eventually just say, you know what, we kind of want to do the final bit our way. We have a really strong vision for this, and we want to see it through. And I see that happening with Arkham Knight. I think that's what's going to happen there. And I think that because Warner Brothers, because they've been so successful with the Arkham series, have recognized this, they're letting them off the leash, and as a result, that looks like it could be a stronger piece. I'm not wholly saying that Arkham Knight is going to be the be-all, end-all, or perfect. I think it still suffers from a lot of the same issues. It's clearly banking in on the success of Arkham City in a way that Arkham City didn't exactly bank in on the success of Asylum in the same way. Through the imagery of the Penguin and Two-Face and all those guys being...
Perhaps, but they're like the top tier Batman villains, so, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the way that they almost seem like they're exactly the same as they were in City, whereas in Asylum it was all kind of hinted at, and then you actually saw it in City and everything was new again, you know. And then you got to Arkham Origins, and even though it was set in the past, everything was exactly the same as City. That's kind of what I initially worried about with Knight. But I think that's why that aspect of the franchise is doing so well, because Batman has been solid from day one, and as a result, the people who have managed to get into the industry to really expand upon that are doing really well with it. Whereas with the new Gotham PD show and the upcoming movies, it does feel that it's very much, we have to will this into existence now.
Yeah.
Not because we're passionate about it, not because we want to see it happen, but because
we want to retain the movie rights.
And because we want to get that money.
Yeah.
We've seen the money the Avengers has made. We want that money. We're not stupid. So, although, you know, that's cool. But I feel that's the way the mentality's been working. And, I as a result, I have more respect for what's happening to the Arkham series than I do for the rest of DC.
Oh yeah, I'm just satisfied with the fact that Rocksteady are putting their foot down and saying, like, listen, this is going to be the ending. This is we're wrapping up what we've begun. And albeit there haven't been that many plot details released yet, and there's lots of speculation going on regarding who the Arkham Knight, the character, is. And some of the fan theories are more bunkers than others. I'm actually content that they're, despite the fact that Paul Dini is no longer on board, they're actually seemingly going through with we know for a fact that the Scarecrow is going to be the main antagonist. So
this is the interesting thing. One of the fan theories that's been going around that I haven't heard expanded upon in the way it should be expanded upon is that Hush is going to be a major factor in... this is kind of spoiler territory, but it's going to be a major factor in Arkham Knight, because at the end of Arkham City, or rather in one of the side missions, we discover that Hush has taken Bruce Wayne's face. Yes, exactly. And in this continuity, he doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is. He doesn't know Bruce Wayne is Batman. He only knows Bruce Wayne from his childhood.
Yeah.
However, people are forgetting that as much as it could be possible that Hush could in fact be the Arkham Knight, more importantly, in the story that the whole taking Bruce Wayne's face is based on, that was a Paul Dini story. A Paul Dini story called Heart of Hush, where it turns out that Hush had a mentor, Jonathan Crane, who is later revealed to be... And of course, you know, the fact that Hush is also related to the Riddler in his first ever story written by Jeff Loeb. I'm really shocked that nobody has made the connection that if Scarecrow is going to be the main villain, and we already know that Hush is involved, well, it kind of makes sense that the Arkham Knight might in fact be Hush related, because it fits in perfectly with Scarecrow's overall plan. I mean, they're saying that Arkham Knight is going to be against Scarecrow.
What?
But, yeah, some people are saying that the idea is that he's another sort of factor that they've thrown in. The idea that he's going to both conflict with Batman and Scarecrow, which I can see happening. But, you know, I kind of like the idea that Hush could be involved in all of that.
To be honest, I mean, not to stroke my own ego and dick here, but
you'll do it anyway.
I'll do it anyway, sir. Well, I mean, I always presumed that that's how it's gonna progress. Like, I knew of the connection between Hush and Scarecrow, and I thought, like, well, you know, what if, like, the Riddler actually figures out who Batman is, and, you know, the three of them team up, and, you know, the entire thing is like an elaborate scheme to destroy both Batman and Bruce Wayne. So,
and it's really interesting that they're choosing the Scarecrow as the lead of that operation as opposed to Hush, because in the Jeff Loeb story it was Hush, even in Heart of Hush it was Hush, but of course in Heart of Hush it suggests that Scarecrow is the one pulling the strings behind Hush. So I'm kind of glad they're going in this direction. I think it makes more sense.
You know what? I think I'm gonna be satisfied with anything as long as halfway through, like, the Scarecrow doesn't take off his mask and guess who, kids?
Because, you know, that worked so well when it happened in Origins. I mean, it was a real ass pull. The idea that Black Mask was actually the Joker. Interesting when it began, but the more you think about it, the less interesting it actually is.
The logistic doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't, no.
If you like Arkham Origins, by all means.
I thought it was okay, just for the record. I didn't think it was groundbreaking by the time I finished it, by any means.
It was what it was, and, you know, my current mentality is that I kind of sort of, like, I gauge things for what they are, versus what, you know, like, oh, this doesn't live up to my insanely high standards, therefore it's shit, you know. I try to, you know, take all factors into consideration. But as far as, like, story goes, like, on the one hand you can sort of, like, understand the limitations they had, because they had to just revamp the Arkham City map for this one. But at the same time, like I've told you, you just gotta go and watch Yahtzee's review of the game. And, like, he does ask important questions. Where is everyone? Why did all of these assassins show up, despite the fact that Batman is still considered an urban myth at this point?
Absolutely, and why does the plot halfway through give up on the assassins idea and just sort of... It's like, oh yeah, there's about 5 assassins, the rest of them are optional, I wouldn't worry about them. And just go straight for the Joker plot again. And in the meantime, you've got Bane, who is only the main villain in the end of it all because of the film that just came out before it.
Ah, yes. I'll break you, but first I'd like you to fucking kill me for no reason.
Wow, it's like I told you, they just took Year One, they took Nightfall, and maybe a little bit of something else, I forget what it was. They just shoved it in a blender and turned it on, and the end result was Arkham Origins. Like, just
exactly. Yeah.
Let me ask you: does the ending make any fucking sense?
The ending is
not the church stuff where he beats up the Joker, but the whole contest where you've got to kill Bane. Why?
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense whatsoever.
Bane knows who Batman is. He could use that knowledge instead.
But then he forgets it straight away, which is one of the reasons I actually was quite annoyed with the plot of Arkham City. Hugo Strange knows who Batman is and doesn't use that information at any point, except for the code name of the bomb. And that really irked me. I was like, so Protocol 10 was just kill everyone? Well... You didn't really need the build-up for that at that point, you know? It's just...
I mean, true, I kind of dislike that aspect of Arkham City myself.
It's a better story by far.
It's a better story overall, yeah. With Bane, it's just like an asshole. Like, oh, he's using this experimental new Titan, Venom.
Well, it is basically Titan.
Yeah. It is Titan. They're alluding to Titan. But here's the thing: if he overdoses, it affects the only area.
Oh yeah, the only area of his brain that remembers who Batman is. That's convenient. I'm sure glad it didn't affect the part of his brain where his, you know, mobility nerve endings were. You know, that would have been fun.
Yeah, or just his nervous system in general, so that he has spontaneous erections and ejaculates all over the place or something.
This is why the Bruce Timm animated series is so great, because in Batman of the Future, that's what happens.
Yeah. He spontaneously ejaculates.
It was wonderful for everyone. Now you know why it was called Return of the Joker and why his face was all white, but you know, that's...
What the fuck?
He just turned up at the hideout.
I was actually thinking, like, oh, that explains why, you know, Tom Hardy's voice was so high-pitched.
That's a better joke, let's leave that in. Oh dear. Batman, I wondered what would break first. Your back or your prostate? You know, it's terrible.